right. Good evening, everyone. It's now 6:05. I have taken the attendance. I also sent out the meeting packet that had the meeting minutes from November as well as tonight's agenda. Has everyone had an opportunity to read it? If so, are there any changes?
No.
May I have a motion to accept the meeting minutes?
I accept. I second.
Thank you very much. Meeting minutes have been accepted in. I will turn the meeting over to John Hanson.
All right, great. I am going to start off. I don't think that I saw Jerry Sahi on.
I'm here.
Jerry,
He's on.
I'm here, John.
Great. Do you want to give a financial update then to start it?
Yep, John, I'll do that. Good evening, everybody. Preliminary DRPA traffic figures for the month of December, the total traffic was 3.8 million. That was $22,000 better than last year. December year-to-date traffic was 48.1 million. That was 1.2% better than last year. DRPA traffic and revenue, final October year-to-date revenue was 284 million. That was 7.4% higher than budget and 6.7% higher than last year. Final October year-to-date traffic was 42.4 million. That was 2.5% better than budget and 2.1% better than last year. PATCO ridership and revenue, final November year-to-date revenue was 12.2 million. That was 380,000 less than budget. That was primarily driven by delay in opening of Franklin Square Station, and versus last year, the revenue was 430,000 or 3.6% favorable. Remember, year-to-date ridership was 5.2 million. That was 160,000 less than budget and 180,000 better than last year. Operating expenses, preliminary October year-to-date operating expenses were 142.2 million, which was 15.3 million favorable to budget. 13.2 million of the above savings is coming from employee-related costs. We have a bunch of open positions, and majority of the remainder 2.1 million saving is from operating expenses and is timing related. That's my update, John.
Thanks, Jerry. Does anybody have any questions for Jerry before we move on?
Yeah, I have a quick question. Was ridership or toll cars, vehicles impacted by the increasing of the toll charges to cross the bridge?
No.
Even though I see that revenue went up, was the number of vehicles the same, more or less? You know,
it's been trending the way it was prior to the increase. That was a little bit better than prior year. So throughout last year, our traffic was a little bit better, maybe around 1% better than 2023, and that's what it was after the toll increase also.
good.
The very raw numbers, Bob, that I saw for the very end of the year and the beginning of this year seem to indicate a little bit of a downturn in that last, say, 2 weeks or 10 days or something like that. And I attribute that to Christmas and New Year's falling in the middle, dead middle of the week on a Wednesday, where, instead of really having 1 week between Christmas and New Year's, it's more like 2 weeks because of the way everything falls. So I think, I expect it to go back to the way it was after the holidays, which is, as Jerry said, slight increase, which is good for us.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking is obviously all the press in New York about congestion pricing and raising the cost. I'm wondering whether it's actually going to affect the number of people that are driving their cars into Manhattan.
Well, it's probably not going to affect the total number, right? But it'll affect when they travel, which is what they want to do. Unfortunately, look, from my perspective, and it's not really my place to opine on this, but I will anyway. This type of approach, while it may make sense from a traffic planning perspective, the people that it hits the hardest are the lower income people who have the least flexibility in when they can travel. So in that way, it is kind of a regressive toll increase, in my opinion. It is forcing people who have probably the least means, who also have the least flexibility, to pay more. So that's what I think about it.
Yeah, I think you're right.
All right. Are there any other questions for Jerry before we move on with our things? All right. I think that Dr. Akrak will talk a little later about some engineering stuff, including she'll talk a little bit about Franklin Square. I'm just going to give you a headline right up front that we had planned for the end of January an opening of Franklin Square. We're postponing that. Right now, there are some integration issues, and I do not have a date for the opening at this point. So Nicole will get into some of the nuts and bolts of that, but I'm going to break that news to you right off the bat. In terms of preparations and partnering, I'm just sort of going down the agenda now. General DRPA, partnering with America 250 PA or Philadelphia 250 for 2026. We're not doing that at this time. We're just in the process right now of developing first the host committee and then the people that will be working with us on our centennial of the Benjamin Franklin Bridge, which is really our priority, right? And it may be connected in some way with some of those other things, but our priority is going to be the celebration of 100 years of the Ben Franklin Bridge. And we're just at the very beginning of that. The Ben Franklin Bridge turns 100 like at the 4th of July, 2026. So that's where that stands. Are there any questions for me on that? All right, next question. Are issues raised on social media being addressed? That is a very broad question. And so I suspect that the asker of the question has something more specific in mind. What I would say to you is that generally, yes, we address them in terms of responding to the people who ask the questions, in terms of the problems that are raised as well. We do our best to respond to them also. We've got 2 dedicated people who work social media. In addition to that, our manager of communications who supervises them is on there frequently. Our director of strategic initiatives is also on there. She supervises the manager. I am on there as well, although for me, I've become a little more disconnected from X, as it's called now, since the name change, and it just it seems to be a little harder for me to follow what's going on there. I do go on. If I'm tagged in something, certainly I respond to that. If I see anything, I respond. Same way with Threads. I'm kind of on. I haven't seen a lot of PACO stuff on Threads, but generally, yes, we do respond. We do address. If the person who asked that question has a more specific point that they'd like to make, or a more specific question they'd like to ask, I'm happy to try and answer that. Okay. All right. Update on the meetings that were held with the governor related to bridge infrastructure. We weren't involved in them, and in fact, I don't even know anything about them. I don't know that we need to be involved. The governor does not really have, neither governor has really any authority to direct us to do anything. Both governors have the authority to appoint commissioners to our board and have the ability to veto our minutes, but they really have no other authority, nor do they provide us with any funding whatsoever. What I will say to you is, though, the DRPA inspection plans for our bridges is more rigorous than any other that I'm aware of. We have the biennial inspections where we thoroughly examine every other year each of the 4 bridges and the PACO train line. Because of the aging infrastructure, our engineer, Mike Venuto, recommended, and I agreed with him, and our board has supported this through the budget process, increasing off-year inspections as well. So we're devoting even more resources to the off-year to inspect the bridges. These biennial and even the interim in the off-year inspections make up the lion's share of our capital improvement plan, as well as our maintenance plans for bridge operations. But we weren't involved, we weren't invited, and not only that, didn't even know anything about it. Any more specific point or questions on that for me?
What was
All
the
right.
context of the question? What brought it up? Did someone?
It's just like that. Update on the meetings that were held with the governor related to bridge infrastructure. Was DRPA representatives included in the meetings? So I don't know.
Bob, there was no additional context around it other than the way the topic came in.
Okay.
Succession planning programs in place at DRPA. We do have succession planning programs that really begin with the retirement planning. The way that with retirement planning, we have encouraged our people, particularly our managers, directors, and above, to give us a long lead on retirement, and that is what is tending to happen. So, for instance, when our CFO Jerry Sahi came on board, Jim White had given us a long time, and we were able to bring Jerry on board well before Jim left. The same thing happened when Dan Oletto was our acting chief operating officer. We had a lot of time with him before he left, when Robert Hicks took over. As of right now, our payroll manager, so even at the manager level, let us know last year that he's retiring in May. We already began the process to hire a new payroll manager. In fact, I made a selection today on that. So I expect that that will be happening. In addition to that, when our leaders go on vacation or take breaks, very often they rotate internally somebody who acts in their stead, in their position, on an acting basis. So also, in addition to that, what we have been doing, and this helps with succession planning, but it has been more related to issues that we've experienced with hiring, although we've made some changes to the salary structure for non-represented employees. We're expecting that to get better now, but we have also maintained a practice of putting key employees who retire under contract on an as-needed basis so that we can call on them. Jim White is currently under a contract, although we haven't used him very much. He's there in case Jerry and his team need him. Former Director of Finance, John Latirzo, is under a contract. He gets used more often ironically, not by the finance team, but the HR group that is short-staffed is using him to help deal with bills related to benefits and other things like that. So this is the way that we're dealing with it. In addition to that, we've been using temp employees to fill gaps while we're looking for the people that we need. But overall, it is working for us. Any further questions on that?
Not seeing any questions.
All right, so the next thing that I'm going to go to is the bridge and highway question on the Commodore Barry incident. And I believe that Dr. Ockrock is prepared to talk about some of those things there from an engineering perspective. If there are, and then I'm going to ask her to go through the things that she would speak about on this. She's got the agenda on behalf of engineering. And if anybody else is needed to step in to answer other questions throughout her presentation or any other presentation, we'll do that. So Nicole, do you want to pick it up on, the actions that we took related to the Commodore Barry and the fire that ensued there, and then the other things that you were going to talk about today?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Good evening. So with the Commodore Barry Bridge, as John touched on, with our biennial inspections, not only do we have them under contract for 2 years, we have the main inspection, plus we have interim inspections. We also have money set aside for damage inspection and sort of these on-call situations. So I will say we had engineers out on the bridge by 9 p.m. On Thanksgiving, and we had a whole crew of inspectors out at 7 a.m. The following morning to do a full in-depth inspection of the site. So, we built that into our biennial inspection, so we always have coverage when we need it. And I will say, I think there were 4 people that were scheduled on vacation on that Friday that all were at the bridge by 7 a.m. So a lot of coordination and reliance on our great consultants who are, really involved. So since then,
Our staff too, Nicole, I just want to interrupt and say,
yes,
our
of course.
engineering management team were out there, our engineers were out there, Mike Venuto was
Yes.
out there that night. Real commitment, leaving their Thanksgiving celebrations on Thursday to be out there to deal with it.
Yes, thank you, John. Sometimes they just assume that that's, that you already assume that, but yes, everyone from our engineering staff, or not everyone, but the management staff and our bridge engineer was also out there. So from that, we did have to shut down one of the lanes due to emergency concrete repairs that were needed. We do also have contracts in place for our job order contracting, which assists us in these emergency situations. So we had our on-call contractors come out, assess, give us a quote, and they were able to clean up, reopen that lane. I think by the end of the following weekend. So within a week, we had that lane reopened, which, as you can imagine, we have other work going on at the bridge that was all halted because of that lane outage. So everyone was able to work together and expedite that. That included pouring concrete in 20-degree weather, which required extra heat blankets and really trying to make sure what we were engineering was going to be safe and sound to reopen, and then get back to our other projects that we're working on. So a lot of coordinated effort, a lot going on, but really thankful to our bridge operations folks and everyone working to make sure that it was handled appropriately and safely. Does anyone have any questions on that? Yes.
Larry?
Yeah, thanks. And Dr. Ockrock, thanks for your time being here tonight. My question was specifically about what seemed to be a communication breakdown from DRPA in getting a message out about the traffic and the bridge closure and the fires on the bridge. I was driving around that night and I only heard about it because I listened to KYW. I didn't get any text alert from DRPA that there were fires on the bridge and the bridge was closed. There was nothing on social media about this. So I would think that fires on the bridge on one of the busiest travel days of the year would precipitate some kind of outgoing communication on DRPA's part to let the community know to avoid that area.
So this is the first time I've heard that complaint, Larry. I'm going to have to look into that and get
Cool.
back to
I
you.
did ask about it on social media and the question was not answered at all.
All right. Well, like I said, I didn't see your question on social media. This is the first time I'm hearing it. Normally, our police dispatchers put out the initial alerts, and then our communication team gets involved after that. So I'm going to have to look into that and get back to you. That shouldn't have happened. I wasn't aware that it did happen, and I will get back to you on that.
Great. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
All right, is there anything else on the Commodore Barry specifically?
Is
Okay,
it back
so
to
the-
normal? Is it back to normal now?
Yeah, yes. And now we're still doing construction projects on the bridge, so there are still lane closures. But now
Yeah,
we're able
which
to
is
do
say,
those that work.
Normal is we have a lot of work on the Commodore Barry, right? So there's a lot of work to do, but we're done with what needed to be addressed as a result of that.
Correct. So the other two items that I'll touch upon based on the agenda, John already touched upon it, was the Franklin Square reopening. So as he mentioned, we are currently going through some integration items. We also have city inspections of our conveyance, elevators, escalators, all that good stuff. That is still in progress as well. So once all of those items have been completed, we'll be able to reevaluate reopening the station. And then the other item I wanted to touch upon was the last bullet point, the design completion percentage and proposed construction schedule for GCL. So I don't know what's been communicated about the GCL project recently. So I will say at the top, it is a very fluid situation. We have, as DRPA has been tasked over the last few years or decades almost, with being the project managers for this project. So we have an agreement with our consultant to get to a 30% design with the intention that it would be moved into a design, build, operate, maintain contract, which essentially means that a contractor will take the design from 30% through 100% while also constructing it. That 30% deliverable has been completed to the best that DRPA can do at the moment. There are some transitional components that we are still working through with New Jersey Transit and South Jersey Transportation Authority, who are our partners in this project. So we are still in a transition period. As I said, it's very fluid. So from a timing perspective, we will know more information in the next few months to be able to share. I don't know, John, if you want to add anything else.
Yeah, I would just say that in addition to this, as you're probably aware, the CEO of New Jersey Transit recently resigned. He's going to be leaving on January 15th. On January 16th, there's going to be a new CEO / executive director. It's Chris Calori. Chris Calori is a South Jersey guy. So we're kind of in a holding pattern until Chris gets in there and we get his vision for what is happening. Right? We've worked closely with Chris in the past, so you know, I don't know what his vision for this transition is going to be, and you know, he's not in a position to talk about it until he gets the job. So right now, we're in a holding pattern for at least another week, and GCL may not be the very first thing he addresses when he gets there, but we've, as Nicole says, we've nearly completed the 30% design, and there are some things where the data is just not available. And so we've done the best that we can, and we're prepared to turn that over if that's what they still want.
Yes, and I don't know if I mentioned this. New Jersey Transit is the owner of the GCL, or agency of record is, I think, the appropriate term. But so we have to sort of wait to hear from New Jersey Transit.
All right. So any other questions on that? And Larry, I saw your link. So obviously we're not answering every question that's on social media, and I will look into that as well. I didn't see that one. So I will
Okay.
look into it.
Thanks.
But I
There
wasn't
that was
finding
one.
it.
I did it a couple other times, but you know, you get the point, and
I
you know,
get the
there
message.
seemed to be a little communication breakdown.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. And I am gonna follow up on it. Thanks, Larry.
I
All right.
appreciate that. Thank you.
So no questions for Nicole. I guess John Rink, the rest of it is mostly gonna be you. You may need some support from me or from Rob Finnegan along the way, but why don't we let
Yes.
you be the principal guy on the rest of this?
All right, certainly. Good evening, everyone, and Happy New Year. First question, homeless at train stations and on trains. Yep, it's a 24/7 problem that we continue to face. Just looking at the data last year, the police removed over 6,400 people from the system. It has been a constant issue, and listening to the radio and the police channel day and looking at the videos, pretty much our police are doing this 24/7 across the system. I have personally reached out weekly to the city in regards to their issues, in regards to their engagement with the homeless that are not in our area, but our police are constantly doing that. Some people might complain or say they don't see our police, but the police in the morning go from 16th to 12th to 9th to 8th. After they've done that, somebody can have easily came back through the system because we don't have an officer in every station. The other thing too is right now it's been code blue, and we've had issues, and I know Rob Finnegan can attest to it, that we do have neighboring towns that drop off their people at our stations due to code blue.
So Rob Finnegan, do you have anything that you want to add to that?
No, I can just confirm what John is saying, that neighboring towns throughout the county do drop some of their unsheltered off for, or to our stations, I should say, for warmth and what have you. So that does happen fairly often, especially in temperatures that we've had this week. We've addressed it with the individual towns, but we may get some buy-in initially or some help from them initially, but it does seem to resurface as an issue for us.
But there are details where the police officers do go onto the trains, and at various spots along the line. Usually it's wherever the officer is at the time. They try to do it at the terminal stations. Again, they can't be everywhere at every time. Where they're at, they're removing them. And as I mentioned, there was over 6,400 removals last year.
Well,
So, and what I will also say about that is that this is an issue that will get better as we add additional police officers, and I think we've made changes to the police compensation as well, which is going to improve that. The one other thing that I need to do, the one other thing that I think we're going to need to do to um, is to get more police before we can do more. But this is the reality. This is the reality of where we are. And I've used this sort of analogy before. Paco is like a very small stream that's in between two big rivers, South Jersey and the city of Philadelphia. And that the rivers are overflowing and they flood into our area. And there's very little that we can do to solve this problem beyond some very short term, taking the people who are on the trains right now off. The governments on both sides of the river need to deal with it. And until they do, this is going to be a fact of life. It doesn't matter how many police officers we have, because when we take them off, Rob Finnegan was sharing with me earlier, and I was hoping he was going to say this when he talked to you, but he said to me earlier that, unfortunately also what happens is we are arresting people, and that takes our police officers off the line for several hours doing the processing as well. So in addition to just removals, there are arrests, and the arrests come with less coverage on the line because we're processing paperwork. And the reality of that is that that no matter how many we take off, they will keep coming back as long as the problem is unaddressed. And addressing the problem is going to take some courage and some hard decisions. Because I think, from my perspective, I only see two approaches. One is incarceration, and you got to change the laws, and that will be hugely expensive to incarcerate people. You're going to have to build prisons and hire a lot of guards. And these law enforcement occupations are not in demand, and I don't think that's the best solution. The other solution is to relax the rules in some of the shelters so that the people who are experiencing homelessness are more likely to go there. Not a great solution either, but I think it's a much better solution than incarceration. Until that happens, from my perspective, we've been through this many times, and the programs that I see that are largely in place are designed at, helping people become more self-sustaining. They're helping them get jobs and keep homes and, all that. And I do not believe that that is most of the people that we're seeing, that they're in a situation that that these types of programs are going to work. I think that there's a palliative type approach that also needs to be taken in addition to these others, that recognizes that maybe this disease of substance abuse or whatever other mental health disease that people have has progressed to a point where full recovery is not likely. And I do not see programs in place to deal with that possibility, which unfortunately I believe is more than half of the people that we're dealing with. So as long as, and if I'm wrong about what the two possible solutions are, and it may be, because I caveat it all by saying I'm an accountant, I'm not a social worker, but no matter what, whatever the solutions are, if those solutions aren't put in place, then what is going to happen is the homeless are going to be looking for places to be. And wherever they are, the people who are housing them are going to try and put them somewhere else.
So John, might I offer a third suggestion? And
Sure.
that suggestion could be having a meeting or creating a task force to work with those highest offending towns. Also bring in some, have some state, have some state social services at that meeting. That way all the parties can be brought together to really come up with a better solution rather than either incarceration and taking resources away from real issues, and really put it where it belongs, really bring those townships together with social services.
Yeah, and there's a lot of that going on. Let me just say this. I hear the stuff about towns dropping people off, and I have no doubt that it happens, but I don't think there's very much of that. And that's not the biggest problem, right? The biggest problem is there is a large population of homeless people, and probably more in Philadelphia than in South Jersey, but they're in both places, and they got to go somewhere. And wherever they wind up, the people in charge of those areas are interested in moving them out, right? That's just the fact. And so if some of the towns are dropping them off, that may be happening. That's not very much. What's more likely is wherever they're congregating, wherever they've got their communities built up, or wherever they're seeking shelter and warmth, they're being pushed out, and then they go somewhere else. And they keep going places until they wind up, unfortunately, on a train in a concourse, because that's where they seem to get the least, issue. We haven't seen, we're pretty active, as you heard, in terms of policing our stations, policing the trains, and moving them out of there, but they just wind up somewhere else, and it's not a permanent solution. So ultimately, without a solution for homelessness, whatever that is, and again, unfortunately, Reggie, what I see is, I talk to the Camden County people, and one of the guys, the deputy county administrator, he's a good friend, and all he wants to tell me is about the number of people they got jobs and that they put into houses who are now paying their own bills, and yeah, definitely there are people who are in that situation who need to be helped. But those are not the most stubborn, persistent offenders, right? And this is where I talk about this idea of, there are diseases that
Right.
that are treated with palliative care, which means they have gotten to a point that you don't expect the person to ever make a full recovery. And I don't see any solutions that address those people. And those are the ones who create the biggest problems on the trains and create the biggest problems in the concourses. And I am not being demeaning or negative toward them. I believe that they're victims of diseases that there are no treatments for.
Right. So unfortunately, Alan, after you make your comment, let's move on off this topic. We may have to table this and present at another meeting, which we can focus on it. But I think we have some other business that we have to take care of as well. So, Alan, last comment on this topic?
Quick question, John, as far as all that's going on, we don't really talk about the crime rate. Has the crime rate stayed the same, gotten better, gotten worse? That's my
If
only
you read the news yesterday, the crime in Camden has dropped dramatically. Homicides are down, burglaries are down. Nearly every crime in the city of Camden has dropped. Sexual assault is down. They had a big news conference just yesterday, and crime in Camden City is dropping. It seems like Sherelle is making a difference in the city of Philadelphia, but as Ben just posted in the chat, homelessness increased by 25% last year, and look, the programs that are aimed at the working poor, and we see them too. They're the people who are working 2 and 3 jobs and have a setback and they lose their homes. They're the people who are helped by these programs to get people jobs, get them out of debt, get them housed. But those are also not the people that are defecating on the stairways and harassing other people, right? They're mired in their own problems trying to get their lives back together. So again, we're seeing a lot of crimes go down, and not that homelessness is a crime, but it is a real social problem. And I have no doubt that this article is on target, that it's increased by nearly 25%.
Thank you, John.
Yep.
All right. Thanks very much. And we can move on to another topic.
All right, next one up. Will existing PACO headways at least be maintained with the longer journey times for Franklin Square? I know this question's been put up in the past, but there's no change in the schedule with adding Franklin Square. So our existing headways, our existing times in the system will remain the same. Is there a long-term strategy for service enhancements at PACO? Is there a vision to return to every day 12-minute midday? At this time, we do not have any changes to our schedule upcoming. Will the DRPA share the ridership? For those who joined late, I forwarded all that information to Cheryl, who emailed it to Reggie. So hopefully Reggie will email that out. So I will show you what's that?
It's already in everyone's inbox.
Okay, so that has what our 2023 ridership was, and then all the data on 2024. And we'll show you how we track everything from stations, weekday, weekend, Saturday, Sunday, things of that nature, and compare it to last year. So that should have everything on that. What is the timeline for DRPA's system upgrade? As in previous meeting minutes, we're still on the same target of September of this year. So the project's still moving along. Knock on wood. We haven't had any issues with that, but again, we're still looking at the early fall. And then can we prioritize releasing alert information on social media for GTFS? We have no time at this time. We don't have a prioritize. We are not prioritizing that right now. We got our existing vendor fixed, but it is something that we'll look at in the future. And I think that's all the questions, Reggie.
There was one more late question that came in from Strasso, and the question was related to, there were troubles with the overhead next to the arrival station display. Regularly off at 1516 Locust, City Hall. City Hall had dashes displayed for the minutes on the board on Saturday night.
All right, I'd have to look into. I don't know what specifically. I do know if we have a service interruption that has major delays, we do turn the clocks off because we have no way to update those trains as we move trains around, single track around a problem. So I'll have to look into the issue Saturday night.
Okay, thank you.
And then Reggie, just for some general topics while you're on me, our on-time performance for December was 97.38%. For the year, we came in at 97.59%. 50% of the delays are relative to the issues around police emergencies and removing the homeless from our trains and stations. So our target goal is 98%, and we are very close to that this year. And then for our ridership, I know Jerry talked about it earlier, compared to 2023, we increased by 3.46% last year. And then the last thing, the good news thing is our Santa train in December was very well attended and a very enjoyable event. Alan, did you make it? All right, good. So
Yes, I did, sir. Yeah.
So that was a really great event. So that's all I have, Reggie.
One question related to New Year's ridership. So looking at the numbers compared to last year, was there an uptick?
New Year's Day, I'd have to go and pull that data. I
Okay.
don't know, but I can get that and get that to Cheryl to send out.
Okay.
I think
Thank you.
from the earlier reports from our staff in the field, it didn't seem to be a much of an increase over previous years.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions related to Patco? All right,
Sorry, quick thing. Only thing I'd ask, John, is first off, the fact that you have the ridership numbers dating back to like, 30 years is pretty impressive. Only thing I'm curious about is, do you have an origin destination matrix of like where people boarding at each station are going? So like, for example, I'm making this up, 5,000 entries a day at Lindenwold, 1,000 of them are going to 8th and Market, 500 are going to Broadway, something like that.
I don't have that data first on hand, but we can generate reports from Cubic. So like a specific request came in and we looked at it, we run reports, and it would only be for those who have a Freedom card and not the paper tickets. But we can break it down into 15-minute intervals. So if we need to look at something or generate a specific report, we do know and can tell from Cubic by running a specific report. But you can see one of the charts that was provided actually gives you a comparison where the increase in ridership per station was from 23 to 24. I think we had increases in every station, but a decrease at Lindenwold and 13th Street.
I think the 13th, but 16th is probably, I guess, the city closing the connection there, the Broad Street line.
So, but we can generate that data easily. Just have
Only
to
for
run
Freedom
them.
cards, because without the Freedom card, people get on and they buy a ticket that's good for more than one station, and so we don't know where
Right.
to go.
It doesn't track when they exit the turnstile though.
Yeah, we know when we exit, but you don't know where they came from. If they're on a paper ticket.
It doesn't.
On the paper ticket, just shows it, but then the paper tickets are captured. We would have to specifically hand count each of the paper tickets to find that out. But
Well, even then you couldn't, because it's the same paper ticket to go from Lindenwold to 12th and 13th or 15th and 16th, right? It's not a different price or a different ticket. So you don't know if somebody went to Lindenwold, you don't know if they got off at 15th and 16th or 12th and 13th.
Gotcha.
I had a quick question. Are there any tentative plans, and I use that with big air quotes, in upgrading 8th and Market with the pending Sixers Stadium years off? And my other question is, with Sherelle Parker actually making a push in cleaning up crime and improving the city, are there any tentative plans in reopening the connection to the Broad Street line?
I could take that if you want, John. So we have improvements planned for the Philly stations. We have grant money in hand, and we're looking to do that for events in 2026. So 8th and Market and the other 3 Philly stations, we are looking at doing enhancements, new lighting and everything. The last time that they were rehabbed was in 1998. So we have grant money. We hope to get a consultant on board shortly to start that, but our goal is to complete a bunch of those renovations before FIFA and the July 4th celebration and everything. In regards to Sixers, 8th and Market Station doesn't touch where they will be. So there's really nothing we have to do in the station to prepare for the Sixers.
I was just thinking the volume from South Jersey. If I'm coming in on Patco, I'm getting off at 8th and Market to go to the game.
Yeah, so you'll either have a choice to get off at 8th and Market and walk topside, or go through the Fashion Center at the concourse level, or you could actually use Franklin Square. We've had planning sessions our existing service. We would just run more trains in the evening west when there's games, because every other train we send over is a deadhead. So that won't be an issue. And we are looking to plan same thing like we do for concerts, that we would have trains on standby for when the games are let out, that we would add into the system to take on any extra ridership, that ridership crush. We do that at concerts in the summer. When everybody arrives at City Hall and Broadway, we have trains that are pulled in to grab those crowds and move them out quickly.
Larry?
Thanks. When you're talking about station enhancements, reminded me that a while ago, and again, I haven't been here in a while, busy schedule and stuff like that, but a while ago, we talked about upgrading the security call boxes in the stations and the parking lots. Has there been an update to that?
Rob Finnegan?
There has stations, I believe there's still two stations that are being installed, and then we will have them completed across the line.
Great, cool. Thank you very much.
And for
Yes, sir.
those, but Larry, on the platforms, the new call boxes, besides having a camera right there, they actually have a dual function. They can contact our police on one, or if they have a general question, or report an issue such as, so if they need like a general question, they can contact our CSAs and they'll be able to provide info. So there's like
Awesome.
two
That's
buttons they
great.
can use. Yeah, for info, and then hopefully people report, and we've seen people use them to report somebody falling into the track area or another issue going on. So, and now we have each of those on the platforms has a camera built
Cool,
into it.
great, good to know. Thank you.
All right. Larry, since we're on you, let's turn it over to social media quickly.
Great, thank you again. And the only question that came in was actually from Blue Sky, and it would be nice to see Paco have a presence on Blue Sky. That's a little side note, but someone asked about having real-time train data. Your signs obviously use it. Please make an API so we can use it. And I said, we've been asking for GTFS data for a long time. And the person got back to me and said that you do publish your GTFS data, but it's only for the normal schedule, which is seemingly never in effect. It doesn't have to be GTFS. See api.septa.org as an example. So
I
long-standing
just want to
question.
state for the record, I did not post that on Blue Sky. That's someone else.
We
As John indicated, this is something that we will look at down the line, but in terms of ridership numbers that we have right now and other persistent problems, this is not a place that we're going to be directing resources in the short term. Right now, we're focused on dealing with the homeless issue, and we're focused on dealing with cleanliness of the train stations. This is it just doesn't have a big enough impact on enough people to become a high priority at this time.
The GTFS data does not have a big enough impact
on enough people with ridership where it is relative to the other problems. So it's just not something we're going to be focused on right now.
Thank you for that. Respectfully, personally, I would disagree. Someone who just uses Google Maps for information, being able to pull up timely data for SEPTA, whether it's the transit app or Google Maps, whatever it is, I would respectfully disagree with your assessment there. But
and
thanks
Larry,
for the
I'm not
information.
saying it's not important. I'm not saying it's not important. I'm not saying it's not worthwhile. It is, but in terms of Paco is a commuter line, and right now with the state of commuting, ridership is down dramatically. This enhancement, when we get to it, we don't believe is going to have much of an impact on ridership. There's no question. It will be very helpful for the people who use it, but the homeless in the stations, the cleanliness in the stations is going to impact ridership. That's what we're focused on. That's where the resources are going. And with the PACO subsidy having more than doubled since the pandemic because of this, it is just a reality of something that we know it's an important thing, but it is not one of the urgent few things that we need to devote the resources to right now. And I understand you disagree with me, and I understand Jeff disagrees with me. And look, and you're free to go to the board about it as well. And I would make the same case to the board, but ultimately we've got limited resources to devote to PACO, particularly without the fit. We didn't increase fares. There are a number of things that we're doing that constrain resources even further, and it is just not something that. I'm not saying it doesn't impact people, because I know it does. What I'm saying is, and I'm not saying it's not an important impact. What I am saying is it is not as big and doesn't impact as many people as the things that we are going to focus on right now in the face of a growing subsidy and diminishing ridership.
Thank you for that. Couple questions that just came to mind, and thank you for your feedback. I do respect that. I've seen DRPA post about upcoming summer internships. Could this be a project for an internship? And secondly, Mr. Ring talked about grant money for PATCO. Is there any tech grant money out there that would be able to cover this?
Well, we're always looking for grant money, and if we found it, we would certainly avail ourselves of it. The problem with grants and interns is going to be that both of these are temporary. And although I said that this is not one of our top priorities, I was talking to John and Mike Williams about this today. They are still trying to solve this problem. They are still working on it. They are still trying to find a way to do it. But again, it is just not the highest priority, and it is not something that I'm in a position to spend a lot of money to do right now.
Thank you. That's all for me.
I think the only thing that I would add to that, if I could, is first off, I totally appreciate the comments, and I agree that, safety is of the utmost priority. I think what I would recommend is mostly just the finding ways that we can have the staff resourcing that's already going on do not more work, but work in a different way that can feed all the downstream systems. So for example, having instead of someone posting something to Twitter and then having to post it to the website and then having to post it somewhere else, finding a way that we can have it be they post it once in one system and it goes to the website, Twitter, and an alerts feed that can appear in Google Maps, Transit app, etc., all these sorts of things. I think that's really that piece. And the only other suggestion I'd throw out there, two things. One is that if you got any sort of summer intern to build things out, obviously to the extent that my schedule permits, I'd be happy to weigh in as need be. But I think the other thing I would say more generally is there's a lot of people in the transit data space who are willing to get involved in this and sort of donate and offer their time. There used to be a hackathon that used to occur back in 2010 through 2014 called Apps for Philly Transit that admittedly was mostly focused on SEPTA, but because PACO didn't have a ton of open data available at the time, there weren't many resources built out around it. So I'm not even sure the extent to which they've been looking at revivals of that at SEPTA, but it may be worth even looking to partner with Code for Philly, which is sort of a civic nonprofit based in Philadelphia where people do sort of free development work and they want to support some of this as well as just another avenue to help advance this.
So look, I will take all that into consideration, particularly the part about trying to get it done with no more work. We are in a situation where with a 16-member board, not everybody is enamored with the level of spending that we have going on at PACO right now, right? And the reality of it is, as I explained to them, it's not a variable cost operation. There's very little that we can do. It's mostly fixed cost, right? I don't need less safety people. I don't need yes, can I get rid of a couple of train operators, and do I lose a little bit of a little bit of cost for electric if I don't run as many trains? Yes, but it doesn't even scratch the surface. Most of the people and infrastructure that we have right now are going to be necessary whether I run one train or whether I run a full complement, right? So and this is something we're grappling with at the board right now, because not everybody does support the current level of spending and attention that we have at PACO. So our function is, again, trying to run as many trains as possible to serve the people who are there, and to try and solve the issue first and foremost with homelessness, because a lot of the cleanliness issues stem from the homeless issue as well. Not all of them, but a lot of them. But trying to spend the money and the managerial focus there is our key approach right now. But John did give me an update on what they're doing to try and find people to do things with GTFS right now. So it's not like we've said, nope, not doing that now. Absolutely, we're doing it. We are absolutely working on it, and I'm hopeful that this work bears some fruit, but it is just not our highest priority, right? In fact, even with communication, right now, my highest priority is to find out why we didn't communicate around what happened on the Commodore Barry Bridge, and also to find out why on Saturday night I had these signs with dashes, right? That's going to be my main focus coming out of this. But am I not going to say, and while you're doing all that, don't worry about GTFS? No, we're not. We are absolutely not saying that. We are working on it because it is important. It does have an impact. It just doesn't rise to the urgent few. It's in there with the useful many right now.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. A couple more things. Any upcoming notices?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Venuto's not winning any awards again, is he?
The only thing we would have coming up, Reggie, and obviously John said we'll keep everybody apprised, is the revised Franklin Square.
Yep. Okay. And then last thing, update on recruitment.
Yeah, we just were able to hire 4 people, CSAs at PACO. We had 4 openings there. We made 4 offers, and all 4 were accepted, which is big news for us. As I said, we've shifted our salary grades to allow us to make higher offers, because we were really having difficulty getting people. And that's why I talked about earlier having to use temps in a situation where very often we were paying more than we would have for employees if we could have gotten them. But the temps were outside of our salary grade, and we can always get rid of them when we get new people. So
I think you mistakenly took that as internal to DRPA rather than recruitment for CAC.
Recruitment for CAC. I do not have an update. I do not have an update on that. I know that we have been working on it. I'm going to ask Mike Williams and Cheryl. Tell Mike we want him here at the next CAC meeting to talk about recruitment for the CAC.
You got it.
And while we're on there, Reggie, we do have a new candidate with us tonight, Daniel Coyle, and maybe before we close off, he could tell us give us a little background. And also Scott and William, I believe, are checked in with us also, who may or may not have been to 3 meetings each. Is that correct?
They have been to 3.
Okay, so we should probably nominate them for, if,
Correct. That was part of next new business.
okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything for DRPA before we let them go, before we move into new business? Question, excuse me, no questions? All right. Thank you, Mr. Rink. Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Thank you, Dr. Akarat. Thank you,
Good night.
Jerry.
Good
And
night,
thank
all.
Thank you
all of you
all.
for the feedback. We do appreciate it, even if
Thank
we
you.
don't, even if we don't
Thank
agree
you,
on
Rob.
everything. It definitely stimulates my, my thought processes, my thinking, and the conversations that we have internally after these meetings. So I do
Always a good
appreciate it.
meeting.
John, we really appreciate that you can come to as many of these meetings and bring your cogent thoughts and wisdom and experience to all of us.
Well, and I appreciate the wisdom that we get from you because look, as much as I don't like to admit this, I'm not right about everything and I like to be right. So when I hear the thing that bothers me more than anything is when I disagree with somebody and I keep rolling it around in my head. Why don't they see it my way? Why don't I see it their way? So I whenever I have a disagreement with somebody, it stays with me for a long time because I always am trying to figure out why I don't see it the way they do, why they don't see it the way I do. And it frequently does change my opinion or at least moderate it. So this is really important for me, Bob, and that's why I like to be at as many of them as I possibly can.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Have a good
everybody.
night.
Thank you.
Good
Have a
night.
Good night.
Happy New
All right,
Year, everyone.
DRPA, we have a few more
Happy New Year.
things. We have a couple more things to get through. Under new business and the CAC membership, we are at seven members. We have 4 from New Jersey. We have 3 from PA. As the current numbers stand, we lose Tyrone in March, and we lose Bob in June. So we'll lose 2 from PA, but hopefully we gain as well. But we'll still need some from the PA side. And then before we get into the candidate nominations and having Dan give us a brief update, there was another item on there that I wanted to talk about very quickly, which is the DRP COC officer update. Now, as you all know, that I have gone emeritus at this point in time, but I'm still functioning in an emeritus chairman state. Scott and I have been in conversations with regards to him moving into the chair position for the remaining of the term. But once we move through February, we will have elections. And so of the remaining individuals that have voting privileges, we need a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary. So that means out of the remaining individuals, so between Strasso, Scott, Judy, Grace, and Steve Beningo, 3 of you have to take officer positions. So start thinking about it, roll it around your heads, and we can revisit this again. But I'll still stay in the emeritus chairman status until that point. If Scott, you wanted to take over for February, if you're in a position to do that, I'll work with you, transition and all that. Yes?
Yeah, we'll walk offline and get it worked out.
Okay, and then also later on in the year when Bob goes emeritus, we'll need someone for membership unless Bob wants to continue to do it in an emeritus status. But those are the key components of the leadership that we have to work through. All right, from a membership perspective, William and Scott have been to minimum 3 meetings. So William, are you still there?
Yes, sir.
So being that you've seeing that you've been to 3 meetings, what is your take on the DRPA CAC meeting structures, and what's your overall impression?
I really like the way that the meeting follows the agenda and all of the technical and financial updates that we get from the DRPA folks, and their openness to discuss all of our questions and issues in the meeting, and that we get to send in those questions beforehand if we needed to.
Is this something that is this an organization that you would see yourself being part of?
Yes, sir.
That being said, may I have a nomination for William?
Nominated.
Second, oh, okay, that's a done deal. So we will put your name
Thank
before the audit committee. Thank you for that. And Scott. There you are. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So same question to you, Scott. So seeing that you've been to 3 meetings, and you've seen how things operate, what is your impression of the DRPA CAC organization?
Excuse me. Yeah, like William, I hear the keenness for, I think, the cross-disciplinary synergy that everybody brings. I myself am not a traditional engineer, but I think I speak for one. I think I speak for all that. I can contribute a pretty interesting socio-cultural, professional perspective nonetheless.
Excellent. And is this an organization that you would see yourself being part of?
110%, yes, sir.
That being said, nominations, please.
Nominated.
All right. Thank you very much. We'll put your name, Scott,
Thank
in
you for the
for
privilege.
a nomination for the board. So thank you, Scott. And we
Thank
have
you.
Daniel Coyle, this is his first meeting. Can you give us a little bit of background about yourself?
Sure. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
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 Okay. Wasn't sure if this was working. I grew up in Audubon. My first ride on the Patco was when I was 10 years old. I'm now 33, so it's a pretty long history of being a rider. I found this meeting really fascinating. Professionally, I have about 10 years of experience in case management and social work. Most recently, I work for Catholic Charities, getting housing for homeless veterans. So, I'm every day Lindenwold to Ferry Avenue. And this has been a very interesting experience to know what goes on with, DRPA and how they are, like the other person said, willing to share certain information that I didn't realize was shared with anyone outside the organization. I think my focus would be what are we actually doing for those 6,400 people that get removed from the train, so that it doesn't become as people say in my field, a frequent flyer situation.
Right.
So yeah, I'm very interested in what you guys do as an organization.
Excellent. Any questions for Dan? Do you go by Dan or Daniel?
Dan's fine.
Okay. Well, we welcome you to your first meeting, and we'll send out other invites to future meetings. So as far as the process is concerned, you would have to attend 3 meetings. We'll have that same conversation at the end of the 3rd meeting to determine if you want to be a part of the organization. Then we'll nominate you and then have you go before the finance committee, which is an interview / conversation. And then you'll be on the board for a 5-year term, at which time you can also be an active participant and join other components of the organization as well.
Okay. Sounds good.
Excellent. So we have 3 great new individuals. So I'm really happy about that. I don't have anything.
And I'd like to say one more thing. Thank you for, if anyone saw my co-host here. I have a 5-year-old daughter, and she was very interested in what was going on.
We saw the guest appearances every now and again.
She made a couple appearances. She was very interested. So thanks for all.
She's welcome as well. Does anyone have anything for the good of the group?
I had a quick question. William or Scott, do they live in PA or Jersey? I know Daniel lives in Audubon.
New
I think
Jersey.
I think they
Jersey.
both live in New Jersey.
I'm
Yes.
Medford, Mr. Cohen, New Jersey, excuse me.
Scott,
Yep.
Mr. Cohen's.
Right, so we are lacking, we will be lacking from the PA side.
Well, I
I'm the
mean,
sole
if it,
survivor.
I
Sorry?
work in Philadelphia, so I'm happy to deputize for Philadelphia. I think
No,
Granddad
it's really based
would
on where you
appreciate that.
reside. We appreciate that, but it's where you reside.
Of course, understood.
Yep. All right, does anyone else have anything for the good of the group?
Yeah, I'd like to say I didn't want to say nothing during the meeting, Reggie. As to my question, Bob, I was the one that brought up the question about the infrastructure. And the reason why I brought it up, because, you know, all through our break, they were talking about all these drones and everything. And they're flying above us. The incoming president is talking about making cars and trying to beat China and having these vehicles in the air. And when all that was occurring, I just was wondering why, because of our infrastructure with the bridges, that the DRPA wasn't involved in those meetings, because I understand they don't receive any money from, from the governor in regard to the DRPA, but they should still be informed of what's going on.
You're right.
And I just wanted everybody to understand it. That's why I didn't really want to prolong the meeting. I didn't want to say nothing about it. But I think a lot of people was at that meeting. And I think the DRPA should have been at that meeting.
I think that's a topic that we can bring back up next month, Reggie, and with clarification about the drones, because that I don't think that part was clear. At least it wasn't for me.
Right. Yep.
Also, in regards to what Larry and Jeff and Al was talking about, see, when we make our annual report, we can put that in there. What Mr. Hanson was saying is we can make these recommendations to the board. Even though they don't have the money now, maybe in the future they may get the money and they can allocate it for that. He told us what we needed to do. You know what I mean? It's not up to him, it's up to the board.
I'll also just say, sorry, go ahead, Ty. I don't want to interrupt you.
No, at this time, they can't allocate the money because they don't have the money. But at some time, they may get the money. So you don't want to lose that off our agenda. We got to put it in our report. That's why those annual reports are very important. Even if the chairman's not going to go to the board meeting, somebody write it up, the chairman write it up, and give it to Al so Al can present it. Because he goes to the board meetings. Everybody understand what I'm saying?
Yep, you do, Tyrone.
Well, I would definitely bring that to the board if you guys want me to. I think it's very interesting that things come up all of a sudden. And sometimes money just pops out of the train organizations or out of the federal government.
Yes,
only when
yes.
they really want to. And if we have a plan of attack with just our priority list, I hear what John's saying, John Hanson, and I understand that. But
his hands
this
are
is
tied.
why the Citizen Advisory Committee can approach the board. We don't have to be mean and beat them up, but we sit there and give them the suggestions and our concerns. That's our job.
Right.
Hey, Jeff,
And
I
I'd
have a
like to
question
thank
for
these
you.
other guys for coming, by the way, the new guys.
Yeah.
Jeff, I have a question for you. You really have your, finger on the pulse of transit nationally more than any of us do.
Mm-hmm.
How common is it for transit agency not to use GTFS data on a regular basis and push out updated schedules and make it available?
I'd say it varies. So I'll say a couple of things. The first thing I'll say is last year was the first year ever that the Federal Transit Administration mandated that every transit authority in the nation that receives any federal dollars publish at least one GTFS a year. Now, granted, that's one a year, but at least for the federal reporting purposes, you have to submit it along with. For anyone who wants a nerdy thing to look at, there's a thing called the National Transit Database. You can get a profile on any transit operation basically in the US. It's very cool. Highly recommend. But as part of that now, you have to submit a GTFS feed with your submission. Now, amongst the large agencies of the railroads in the Northeast, I'd say all the big ones in New York update their GTFS for basically every bit of weekend track work. Boston is perhaps, admittedly, a bit more on the insane side of updating for every little minor thing that could possibly happen. But even DC, etc., it's more the norm. For an PATCO is kind of weird because it's a smaller operation relative to, the Philly area. But I think for an operation of their size, for the frequency with which they do track work, it would be, I'll say this, the fact that the base schedule changed and it was not updated on day one is very much abnormal no matter where you are in the country. So I think they were a bit behind the curve in that respect. I think the big thing that I keep sort of coming back to is I don't think it's a money issue. And that's my big thing, because I keep hearing it's a money issue, and I'm sympathetic to the needs of staff time. I think what I tried to focus on in my comment is I think it's more a sense of how do we do it in a better way as opposed to doing duplicative work. So like right now, the PATCO staff are putting together, when they make their schedule, they put together a spreadsheet, they send that spreadsheet over to someone who then makes it into a PDF that gets uploaded onto the website. And then they take that PDF, make an image of it, and then upload it onto the, what I call like the red TV screens on each platform of today's schedule. They put it there. And then they're like, and we don't have time to also update the GTFS. Well, the way that most people build out their scheduling systems and real-time information system these days would be that they just build out whatever schedule in like a spreadsheet, click a button to make that spreadsheet into GTFS, which I also gave them a tool to do. Then they upload their GTFS, and that would serve as the base schedule for all of the departure boards, so they wouldn't have to update another system there. It could then feed automatically to the website. It could feed to all these places. So like, for example, in Boston, we do track work for the commuter rail anytime. We go ahead, we take the GTFS, we put it out live. Once the GTFS is out, Google Maps, Apple Maps, Transit app, MBTA.com, all these different tools automatically have the latest schedule. And if you saw the SEPTA website got an update, I want to say about maybe 5 months ago, maybe a little longer than that. All of SEPTA.org now is based on GTFS. So when you go and say, I want the regional rail schedule, it's no longer just like something that people put into the website. It's literally just querying the GTFS data in there, and if anything, making the PDF schedule that they upload is the harder effort nowadays. So I think, my recommendation is how do we find ways to make it so that they can edit the schedule for whatever their needs are, but have it be in there so it's super easy to also get into the GTFS static bit. And I think the other thing that I would just throw out while I'm on a bit of a soapbox here for a moment is when you take a look at the alerts that PATCO is sending out. They do a really good job of putting out alerts on things like Twitter and their website and the text alerts. The problem is that's just a text box that goes to people who subscribe to it. Most places have a tool where, so within GTFS, you have your static schedule, which is kind of like the schedule that exists. And then I'm partially saying this because I know it's being recorded, and that way anyone who wants to look back at it can see it. You have your static schedule and 3 real-time components. Vehicle positions, which for PATCO probably matters the least. It's basically the GPS location of where every train is, which once it's in a tunnel, it's not going to work. That they don't need to release. You have your trip updates, which says this train that was scheduled to leave at 7:30 is actually estimated to leave Ashland at 7:32 and 24 seconds. Like that's what trip updates are. And then you have the last feed is service alerts, which is where all the little text alerts that they type, you can put out there and say, this alert impacts City Hall Station from 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. And that way people can subscribe to alerts and get alerts to say, as someone who when I'm at my folks' house, it's basically Lindenwold and Ashland are my two primary stations. I can't tell you the last time I've been to Westmont. If something's up with the Westmont elevator, I don't need a notification about it. So you can have people subscribe to alerts based on what they actually care about, where they're actually going, get the alerts that way. And then if I go to pull up something in like Google Maps, even if they're running a special schedule, even if they don't update the GTFS and still have the PDF there, it could at least say in Google Maps, hey, a special schedule is in effect now. Tap here to view the PDF. And I think that to me is the lowest hanging fruit of it may be a little cost for them to build out a real-time alerts feed that's compliant with the spec. But if they do that, then there's no argument for any other effort required for putting out the information there.
That's something that would need to be done once, right?
For the setup, yeah, to get a system. Now, there may be some cost for ongoing use of if they're going to buy an off-the-shelf system, but updating the static schedules like that they can do today with the tools that were provided to them for no additional cost. They just need the staff time to do it. And apparently IT threw a bit of a fit of them having a Python installation on their computer. Fine, you can do it in a web browser and it'll work fine there on your phone. So, yeah, in terms of cost shouldn't be a big thing.
I would think
AI.
They have to see the value in that.
See, that's something that should be put on our report and given to the board for the board to discuss. Because it doesn't, if it's not costing any money, then I mean, Jeff, several times, man, I listened on the meetings when you offered to help. And I mean, it didn't take, I mean, if you can fix it, why not have you fix it? You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
I've known you for a long time, Jeff. When you was with SEPTA, man.
I don't want to think about how many years it's been. That means I'm getting old.
When I was just a young buck, you left SEPTA, and I told what I tell you. I said, man, you're gonna be a genius. You're going places because you know what you're talking about. You know what I'm saying? And this is what our board is supposed to be about. We got engineers, we got a social worker, we got people from all walks of life here. This is what the board was created for, to bring what you think needs to be done to improve the DRPA.
Right, so we can definitely put it on our report and present it, and then it's up to DRPA to then execute based on their priorities.
Exactly, Reggie. Exactly.
So that's what we'll do. All right, anything else?
I'll stay on long as Bob stay on. You know what I mean?
So if I may, I'm the one that brought up about the social media stuff being addressed, not to take from Larry's, your platform. It's people are making comments on the PATCO Facebook page. I was kind of glad to start seeing stuff like that because I feel like the chief and Rob Finnegan feel like I was just clutching my pearls because there was homeless people on the train. But now other people are bringing it to their attention. And I wanted to know if they're being addressed because I personally don't think, as a lady said tonight, she feels like, I'm writing this, but they're basically just ignoring me. And, everything that I brought to the meeting a couple months ago is now being posted on social media. And that's why I was asking if they're addressing it. But I think it got John a little ruffled. So I just kind of kept my mouth shut.
Judy, you brought it up a long time ago.
I think you riled them up, and I that's one of the questions I had about the crime, because I remember you having an issue, and this is really important. And he skated right around that and really didn't answer the question. You go back.
Like Reggie said, though, they need to have a summit from Pennsylvania, all the Jersey counties, and let's figure this thing out.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
That's my suggestion. It's not something that can be fixed in a vacuum. It's a multi-tiered solution.
Put it in the report. Put it in the report, Reggie.
It's going to take planning, and it's going to take time. But if there's a good plan put in place with the multi steps, it will yield a better result than either arresting people or, ushering someone off. It doesn't get to the root of it. But we're not going to solve this issue tonight.
I don't know who these 6,400 people that they took off these trains and when. Just last week, they pulled the train aside. An officer came on, guy sound asleep, ticket on his chest, just kept right on going. He had no shoes on. It was getting cold. He had no shoes on, had soiled himself, but because he had a ticket on his chest, the officer kept walking. Now, maybe it was a legitimate ticket, but again, I can pick up 3 tickets at any given time off the floor of Patco and lay it on my chest. Nobody's looking to see if it's an expired ticket. But the police, there's a driver that says, good morning, all my overnight riders. Please, I'm asking you to get off at the next stop because basically when you get to 15th, 16th, the police are going to ask you to get off. But obviously they ride on this driver's car all night. I'm not saying anybody should be out in the cold. I don't know what the solution is. And I will get off I've given up.
Don't give up, Judy. Don't give up, baby. Don't give up.
But
The
like I
thing
said,
is,
it's
homelessness.
It's going to take a different approach.
correct.
And we will tackle it through different angles and through different methods. There's more than one way to approach one street. You have different avenues that you can come in, and that's what we have to do. And that's what we'll continue to do.
Right.
That's what this organization is for, and that's what we'll do. Yes.
Homelessness at transit stations is not a local issue. Whether it's a train station, a bus station, a library, anywhere that's free and warm that people can go into anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world. People that need somewhere to go find a warm, dry place to go. It's not just here. And unfortunately, it's what we see because it's the trains that we use.
Right.
I'm gonna tell you something. I'm gonna make you cry. When I used to walk the track as a track inspector, underneath in the ground, we had little cubby holes, and people actually slept in them cubby holes in the cold. I never bothered them. They didn't bother me. But that's a sight to behold. Sight to behold. We as a nation got to do better. We just can't turn a blind eye because, when you turn a blind eye, what happens? It's right in your face, right? We got to do something.
Okay.
At least try.
All right, we'll continue trying.
I had a video my daughter gave me last week when she was on SEPTA, and it was a whole bunch of homeless people sleeping on there. I was going to bring it up tonight, but I know John really circled his wagon, so I didn't know how to, so I just pulled back on that. But do you want me to forward it to you, Reggie, to include, or?
Yep.
Okay. I'll forward you the video.
Okay. All right.
I'll just throw out there, like on the Patco side, credit where credit's due, and I think this is probably where John feels it the most. I have seen DRP police perhaps be the most responsive out of any transit agency that I've been on, worked with. They are responsive in the sense that they are more visible than anyone else, but that's a relatively low bar in the industry. And like Judy, to your point, but right after Thanksgiving, I went with my folks into to Wanamaker's and do all the Christmas stuff in Center City, and we got off at 16th Street for the first time, and my parents hadn't taken the speed line in probably like 2 years. And we get off and you walk by, and it's like horrifying to see what the concourse looks like. And I get that it's DRP doesn't manage that stuff, but especially I think one thing that's really interesting. Not interesting, but I think it reflects a paradigm shift that's changing with Patco is, when John talks about Patco as a commuter operation. Patco was a commuter operation. And if you take a look at every commuter rail agency, which Patco is more a rapid transit system, but mostly if you look at every commuter rail agency, of which admittedly I work for one, but I'm not speaking on behalf of them now, every commuter rail agency in the nation right now is looking at how to transition to be more of like a regional rail model in the sense of running an all-day frequency service where people who are not just 9 to 5 commuters are coming in, going out, and having more service all day. And if Patco is going to want to be able to increase ridership, just hoping and praying that the 9 to 5 commuters come back, it's not going to happen. It's been we're 5 years now basically into when COVID first started. So at this point, like looking at how we're going to attract the ridership of the future, what's going to get it are doing things like, I put in Google Maps, how do I get wherever? And it shows, oh, well, you can take Patco in 5 minutes and it's going to take however long and stuff like that. Having it be a positive experience on board, that's really what is going to matter and make the difference. And so I think, a lot of people love to brush away the quality of life stuff, but it matters. And I think people don't realize it does matter, even if it's, you can be doing a good job at something, but even if you're doing a good job, if it's not going to be effective, not because of your own doing, but because of other things, it's still going to have an impact. I'll get off my soapbox now too.
Let me just put in my
final comments, everyone. It's getting late.
Final 2 cents worth. Let's not forget that, first of all, Patco is completely subsidized by the Port Authority and bridge tolls. It's the only agency that I'm aware of in the United States that does not get federal funding. So we are, and Patco is losing money. So it does not generate enough revenue from tolls or fares to pay for itself. So it's being subsidized by drivers who go over the bridges. We're expecting it, or we're comparing it with Boston, New York, and SEPTA, and it really can't compare. And I think it's a great service that it offers, and maybe there's got to be some other means of getting funding, or asking for federal funding, or separating it from the Port Authority and have it be
I just get ready to say that, Bob. I just get ready to say that.
Well, those are things that, unfortunately, those are things that we can't tackle as far as how the operating model of the organization is. We can affect some of the positive change. However, as far as its inherent structure, it's not something that we can tackle. So on that note, anything else for the good of the group? May I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion.
Second.
Second.
Right. Have a good night, everyone. See you next
Good night,
month.
everyone. Great job, Reggie.
Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Great job, Reggie. Happy New Year to everyone.
Happy New Year, everybody.